Have you ever found yourself in a position where you've been following what's felt like the path for your life, and then you suddenly realize that it feels incredibly inauthentic to you? Because if yes, today's podcast guest is going to resonate so deeply with you. I feel so very honored that on today's episode of That's So Rich, I got to bring my cousin, Erin Dawson-Coltman, onto the podcast and talk all about her journey of where she was prior to incorporating spirituality, manifestation, yoga, and human design into her life to now the life that she is living today that is fully in alignment with her soul and just the journey that allowed her to get there. And this is so special for me because this is the first family member that I've ever had on the podcast. And for those of you who do not know, my mom is actually originally from England, and her sister is Erin's mom. So we've had years and years of just watching each other evolve and become the people that we are today. And one of the things that we talk about at the very beginning of this podcast episode is how, when you are changing the family norm or the family dynamic, at first it kind of feels kind of crazy. And one of the things that I have said before on this podcast, and I talk about on my Instagram as well, is that oftentimes the person who goes first in the family feels crazy, but you're not crazy, you're just first. And it's been really cool to see that for me going on my journey and now seeing Erin going on hers and just other family members that are doing their thing, that we all are kind of like these mirrors and reflections to each other of what's possible and how life can change if you want it to be. So, like I said, if you've ever found yourself in a position that you feel like you're living a life that is not authentic to you, but you've been following what you thought you needed to do based off of whether it be family norms or social norms or whatever it may be, this podcast episode is going to be for you. Erin dives into all of this on today's episode, but just a little brief introduction to her. She is a yoga teacher, a retreat host, a human design reader based in Portugal. And her passion is helping people peel away the layers of conditioning that have disconnected them from their soul to help come back to this place of true alignment and authenticity inside of themselves. And so, without a further ado, I hope you enjoy today's podcast episode. If you do, and if you're wanting to connect with Erin, definitely be sure to check out the show notes down below. She hosts retreats in Portugal, as well as has some really beautiful offers to help you dive further into your own self-discovery. And we would love it if you connected with both of us over on Instagram. The links to those are also down below in the show notes. But let's dive into today's podcast episode with Erin. What's up, and welcome to the That's So Rich podcast, the show that's redefining wealth and helping you manifest a life that is rich in every single way. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, transformation coach, manifestation expert, and spiritual guide. And together, we're going to create your happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest life. I'm so happy you're here. Let's do this thing. Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to another episode of That's So Rich. Today, I have a first on the podcast, which is that I get to bring on one of my family members. This is my cousin, Erin. And I'm so excited for you to be on the show today, Erin, because me watching your journey has been so inspiring to see just like where you come from, what life was like before you decided to go on your own spiritual journey and personal development journey to have the life that you have today. And I'm excited for the listeners to hear all about it as well. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kit Kat. Oh my gosh, it has also likewise been amazing watching your journey as well. And it's also been really interesting to observe the way that I have viewed your journey from start to end, because I think you are maybe a few years probably ahead of me, maybe in like this weird spiritual world that we are in. And I think at the beginning, there was definitely a moment of what the hell? Like, she is crazy. Like, what has happened to Kit Kat? She's actually lost her mind. And then like a couple of years later, I also joined on this like quest, this journey, and I have also lost my mind. So here we are.
Thank goodness. I think it's so funny with that because I remember when I first started this journey, I was like, I wonder what like the English family thinks about all of this. And I'm sure that some of them are still kind of like, what the hell is Kit Kat doing? But since seeing everybody over the past few years, they're all like, oh, Kit Kat's still Kit Kat. She's just happy now. And that's like, I see for you as well. It's like Erin's still Erin. She's just like living her best fucking life. And it's so cool to see that once it starts in a family, it continues to happen. At least that's what I feel as though is happening for like some of our family members. So, with that, I would love to ask you so that everybody who's listening has like an idea of what we're talking about, just like your journey of what has led you to be the woman that you are today, doing the work that you're doing in the world and feeling so deeply fulfilled with the life that you're living.
Okay, where do we start? This is a long story, and I'm a yapper, so we'll try to keep it a little bit concise. But maybe we start with what I'm doing right now. So, at the moment, I would say my work is mostly in the realm of self discovery, and it involves a few different things. So, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a meditation teacher, I'm a retreat host. I also read human design charts, and that has become a little bit more into place in my business in the past year or so. So, my whole kind of essence of my work is guiding people back to who they truly are and maybe helping give them a little bit of direction with what they're here to express and what they're here to do in this lifetime.
One of the things that I love in everything that you share and just like what we've talked about in that regard is there's not a one size fits all for everybody. And it truly is. It's like all of these different tools, all of these different ways of knowing, modalities, so on and so forth to help guide people back. Just understanding what's happening internally for themselves so that they can take that and move with it in the way that works best for them. So, what was your journey of getting to this place of understanding that for yourself?
Yeah. So I got brought up in quite a what I would call like a traditional household of my parents picked a job and they stuck with it for the majority of their adult life until they retired. And so I think when I was coming to the end of school, I thought, okay, well, that's how you live life and that's how you're supposed to do it. But I do think to a certain extent I was always a little bit rebellious and like I kind of wanted to go against the grain a little bit. So I got to the end of sixth form, which I think is the equivalent of like high school in
Yep.
America. And instead of like going to university or college, I decided to do an apprenticeship with a building company. And so I trained to be a site manager for the first like 6 years of my working life. And so I entered a really male dominated environment when I was pretty young. And I dove like headfirst into it. And to a certain extent, I really enjoyed it for a little while. And then it kind of got more and more intense as we went along. And I think being in that male dominated environment really took its toll on my feminine energy. And I don't
Mhm.
think I realized that at the time. But on reflection, I was really forcing, I was pushing, I was hustling, and I was ignoring intuition. I didn't really have a creative outlet at all. I didn't express my emotions because I couldn't, because I would be seen as like weak. And so it started to get a little bit, it took a little bit more of a toll on my body physically and maybe mentally as well. I ended up with shingles, which is like a stress related nervous infection, I guess. I lost my period again with like the whole feminine flow. I just didn't have it. And I just felt really disconnected from myself. And then, funnily enough, around the same time, I discovered yoga. And it's so funny because, like, of course, that happened at that time. It was definitely like divine intervention. But my mum was retiring and I wanted to kind of like give her something to do, like a hobby. And so I was like, maybe we should go take a yoga class together. Like that might be something that would be fun for you to do whilst you retire. And then I was the one that ended up like absolutely loving it. And honestly, like looking back now, it it saved me from a lifetime of being in this completely stressed and masculine environment that completely went against how I'm designed to be as a projector in human design. That's quite a lot, I know. Um,
No, absolutely love it. So with it sounds as though with where you were at, it was like you said, get into this like highly masculine field where absolutely at first it's fun. It's like I can keep up with the boys, I can do it better than the boys, like I
Anything
can
you
be
can do, I can
stronger.
do bleeding.
Totally. Anything you can do, I can do bleeding. And then it's like recognizing that eventually it's taking this like really intense toll on your mental emotional state, your nervous system. And like you said, the physical manifestation of shingles that was like, oh shit, like something's off and you're losing your period. And then finding yoga. I didn't know that it originally started with taking your mom to yoga and then you being the one that absolutely fell in love with it. That's so
Yeah.
cute.
I mean, she still does yoga. She still absolutely loves it as well. So it's great that we get to practice together when I'm back home because I live in Portugal now. That's probably going to come
Totally.
in a little bit later on. But yeah, I mean, it kind of all kick-started then. And funnily enough, it was like during the pandemic as well. And I was going through like a really heavy workload. I was given my first project that I was managing by myself. I also did like a sponsored degree along with my apprenticeship. So I was like in my final year. So it was just like an accumulation of like really heavy things. And the only time where I felt like myself was when I was like on my yoga mat and moving and breathing and connecting inwards. And it's really hard because I think I had a moment of like realization. I don't think this is like what I came here to do. I don't think I'm supposed to be doing this for the rest of my life. And I kind of always knew that I was gonna quit, but I would say there was like a good 6-month period where I was like really painfully living this life where I knew it didn't fit or align with me anymore. And it's such a confusing headspace to be in when you're going through that until I made the decision that I actually needed to leave.
Absolutely. And so once you left, what did you go do?
So I would call myself brave, but also quite calculated at the same time. I don't make like really crazy risks, but instead I consider my options. So I decided to book a yoga teacher training in Bali back in 2022, it was. So like 3 years ago now, nearly. And I waited for a while until I handed my notice in and they offered me a sabbatical. And I was like, okay, I'll take the sabbatical. But I think deep down, I knew that I was never actually going to go back to that job. And so I managed to convince my boyfriend to come with me as well. So we went traveling for 6 months and I did my 200-hour yoga teacher training. And for anyone that's done it, I'm sure they know how transformational the process is. It was a month intensive course and it just cracked me wide open. And I feel like at the end, I had a lot of clarity about the direction that I wanted to move in.
Absolutely. And so once you finished those 6 months, what was the steps after that?
So maybe backtrack a little bit. During those 6 months, once I left the yoga teacher training, I spent about 4 months traveling around New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia, Thailand, doing more trainings, meeting more people. And the more people that I met, especially like in the realm that I had and the environments that I had put myself in, the more it was exposing me to like all of these different modalities. And I think when you first get into spiritual practices, it's like a kid in a candy store, isn't it?
Yeah.
Looking around being like this and this and this. Oh my gosh. And so one thing that I really connected with more than anything else was human design. And I actually had my first human design reading when I was in Australia with an amazing gal called Fee Dang. I don't know if we can link her, but
Mhm.
she was the one that really opened my eyes to like human design, what it is, and how it can help you live in more alignment. And that's when I discovered I was a projector, which honestly changed my whole view of how I see myself and now how I live my life as well.
Beautiful. Okay, so many different layers here. First thing
Yeah.
I want to go into is I know so a lot of people that I end up talking to, they love yoga, but they almost see it more so as like go in and get your workout done versus like for you, it sounds as though it was this experience that like cracked you open and started to open you up to the internal wisdom that you had that was like, Erin, you're meant for something bigger. What does yoga do for you? Or how do you see it as something that like could be more than just exercise?
Yeah. I mean, I think that journey is, I would say, really typical. Like, I think when I first got into it, I thought to myself, what an incredible workout. Like, I do this whole class and it's really hard and it makes me sweat and it gets me a little bit out of breath and I can barely even remember what happened. And I think that's the amazing thing is because you do completely leave reality and you're so absorbed in the moment. And I think that's what it was. I was no longer thinking about stressful things in the future. I was no longer dwelling on my mistakes of the past, but actually yoga brought me into the present moment that I was in. And what I found was that the moment that I was in was so uncomfortable. It was coming to terms with the fact that I wasn't actually happy, that on the outside I had what seemingly was like a really good job with amazing career progression. I was on my way to like climbing up the ladder pretty fast, but actually internally what I felt was kind of like looking up to the people that were above me at work and thinking, I don't want to live their lives. They're not happy. I'm not even happy doing what I'm doing. So I'm definitely not going to be happy doing what they're doing. And so I think that that was the very first thing that I realized. And then it was like, okay, well, if I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, and maybe this isn't my purpose, then what is? And I think yoga started that process of self-inquiry. And I would say it is my favorite thing about yoga is this aspect of self-study. It's one of the niyamas in the 8 limbs of yoga. It's called Svadhyaya, if I'm going to pronounce that correctly. And it's all about inner reflection. And I think that is what really drew me into the more quiet and introspective part of yoga rather than just the fast moving, flowing, which I love, by the way, but it's not everything about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I love hearing you talk about that I can relate to so deeply is the fact that it always starts one thing to then uncover, like you said, what is my purpose or what does bring me joy? What does bring me pleasure? How can I break out of what I've been conditioned to think is how life is supposed to go and the way that I'm supposed to interact with it? And like you're talking about for you is yoga. For me, it was manifestation. And there's been so many components since that point that have helped me to be like, oh, okay, yes, manifestation. And I'm huge on astrology. I love astrology. And does some components of astrology tie into human design?
Yeah, yes. And it is one of the systems that comes together to make the huge system that is human design.
And then it's like the qigong and something else, right?
That
There's
the
like
I
multiple different
Yeah,
systems.
there's a lot. It's the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, quantum physics, astrology, and it's kind of like all merged together to create this one massive system of information about yourself and your true sort of soul mission.
Totally. Yeah. And we'll go there in a minute, but yeah, it's like it's so cool to see that there are so many of these things out there. And I'm such a firm believer in the fact that when we give ourselves permission to listen to the first one, the rest just appear. Where it's
Mm.
like you listen to that first intuitive pull that's like you're meant for more or you're meant for something different or you are meant to live a fulfilling life. Like I genuinely believe that every single person on planet Earth is meant to live a fulfilling life as opposed to I think there's a lot of just like misconception or like beliefs that circulate in the world that it's like some people are meant to suffer, some people are supposed to be unhappy, some people are here for whatever karmic reasons. And it's like, I don't know. I like genuinely believe that with the willingness to go inwards and take this like inner look at yourself and what's actually coming up for you versus what you think you have to do based off of those external conditions, like you can and will live a fulfilling life, just like you're talking about.
I totally agree. And I think the whole topic of like purpose, like what is your purpose in life? I think that everyone's purpose in life is exactly the same. And I think it is to be who you are. I think it is
Mm.
as simple as that. By following your truth and who you truly are and expressing yourself in a very authentic way, that will bring you happiness and fulfillment and purpose.
Totally. I love that. I've never heard that before either, that everybody's purpose is the same and it's just to be yourself. And so for you, as you then went and did this 6 months abroad, I remember so specifically because I was in England for most of the time that you were in these other countries. And we were going around the roundabout right before your parents' house, and me, you, and Alice were talking about human design, and you had just gotten your first reading done with, you said fee?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you just got your first first reading done, and you were like talking about these different components, and we were talking about it, and you could just feel like the energetic lift inside of you where there was so much like curiosity and excitement and like you're starting to open up so much to what you're talking about, this truth inside of yourself. So once you got back to England, what happened then?
Okay. So when I got back to the UK, I I kind of went back a little bit into like safety mode or like back into like really thinking I have to use my logical brain to make decisions. And there was like one fact of life, and it was that I need to pay my bills and my mortgage. And so I went back to sort of like part time work on the building sites, but I was freelance. So the benefit of that is I could completely call the shots on when I worked and when I didn't work. And so around that, I managed to start teaching yoga as well. But I was very much leading this life of like thing in the day and then in this very masculine environment and having to put my mask back on. And then literally like throwing my mask off and going in the evening to teach yoga lessons to people. So it was a little bit of a weird start. And I also decided that my logical mind decided that I wanted to start a corporate yoga teaching company because I was
Mhm.
like, oh, it makes total sense. Like, I went through, burnout. I understand what it feels like to be worked to the bone, to feel mentally and physically exhausted. And so I can really help people with yoga. But the more that I did that, the more I realized that I was more putting a plaster on the problem rather than actually solving the core of the problem. And whilst the corporate yoga teaching was good for a while, after some time, I just decided that it didn't feel aligned at all. And that was such a hit to my ego because I was like, really thought that this was it and like this is what I came here to do. And then I was like, I realized actually, no, that was just you like trying to think logically.
Totally. Like the safe next move to break into this thing that you're wanting to do, but like in a way that you can relate to, or like past versions of yourself could relate to.
Yeah, when maybe those past versions of myself just needed to be left alone.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so from there, it was almost like it was like little intuitive hits coming to me over and over again. And it was like the universe was like, be weirder. Like actually say what you're thinking. And I ignored it for a little while. But the more I started to teach yoga, I think the more that I found my style and I found what I actually wanted to share with the world, which was maybe a little bit more woo woo than what I was presenting at the beginning. At the beginning, I was like, just take some deep breaths and you'll be less stressed.
Totally. Okay, so with I've always been so curious about this with the like you said, traditional upbringing that you had where it was like, okay, find your career, be in that career path till you retire, so on and so forth. And like this more so like standard way of like how people have been conditioned to live. What was it for you that was like, okay, like I'm going to choose to do what I want to do, even if it makes the people in my life uncomfortable?
Well, I think again, it kind of circles back to being like a little bit of a rebel. And in human design, I have a 3-5 profile, which is roughly translates to like the experienced hero. And it is definitely the one that kind of like tries absolutely everything, like kind of like fucks around to find out. And then makes loads of mistakes and learns from their experience and then can share their experience with other people. And so I think, like I was saying as well, I feel like I'm quite a brave person. I'm a Leo rising. And I think it gives me that kind of like courageous type of energy. It's like this, I'll go first. And so when it came to making like a big career pivot, I don't think I was that scared. I did definitely have some guidance around looking at what the worst case scenario could be, and realizing how unrealistic it is to actually for that to happen. And then also, I this might sound a bit morbid, but I like to think about death sometimes. And I think if I got to the end of my life and I hadn't tried all the things or tried to bring all the ideas that I have in my head into the world, I would massively regret it. And I don't want to leave this lifetime feeling like I have any regrets. And I think it was the combination of those things that just made me launch myself into doing something completely different to what I had been.
So cool. And I relate so deeply with you. It's like one of the things that I've noticed about myself since the beginning of beginning of time, and the way in which I feel as though I've tried so many things and failed at so many things and like just continued to keep going and trying things as opposed to making it mean something about me is just like this deep curiosity and like willingness to experience the world and to understand how I interact with different things as opposed to having somebody tell me how it should be or having like the safety plan of how to move through those different things. And just like you said, I think one of the most profound experiences that I've had in the past few years is my relationship to my body has always been the thing that I've struggled with the most. And I thought about if I'm on my deathbed in like my 90s or 80s or whatever, and I look back and I'm like, I didn't experience life fully because I've been hiding my body all along, or I like didn't think I was beautiful all of these years because I have extra skin on my arms or whatever it may be. Like that just is such a big bummer. And it was such an insane motivator to step into this place of like, oh, okay, like that shit doesn't matter. The thing that matters is me like owning myself, loving myself, taking these risks, doing these different things, even if it doesn't work out the way that I think it's going to. But really seeing, like we were talking about, it's like when you do, even if it doesn't work out exactly how you thought it was going to, it turns into something even greater.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. There's always a lesson to be learned, even if it's
Mhm.
painful at the time.
Totally. Have you had any of those as you've gone through these past few years of paving this path and manifesting the life you have now?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say, well, one of them was definitely like trying to use my logical mind and maybe ignoring my intuition. I would say that was probably like one of the biggest learning curves. And then it was also just like the lesson of like kind of like you said before, you don't need to struggle, you don't need to grind. And I would say understanding my human design more fully has really brought me into a place of just really owning my own energy. So I'm a projector in human design, and it means that I don't have a defined sacral, and your sacral is like your life force center, is what gives you like the vitality and the ability to exert effort over time. And as projectors, like we don't have that. And so we are very much at the mercy of like whenever our energy comes around. And when it does, it's like, cool, we use it now. And then when it's not there, we rest. And like it sounds simple, but I would try to push through those phases where I was feeling like so depleted and so tired, and then end up kind of like knocking myself off my own path like over and over and over again. But what I realized is actually when I give myself more time and space to recharge and actually let go of some of the energy that I've taken on from other people, my insights become even better. I can give better directions to people. I can see things clearer. I can deliver with more clarity than what I am if I am constantly trying to like hustle and push. And yeah, so I think that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is just how to manage my own energy to really optimize how to live and how to earn money as well.
Totally, totally, 100%. So a lot of projectors end up in my world, and when they find out they're projectors, they're bummed because they're like, "What the fuck? Like, I don't have this endless source of energy." And especially in a world that has conditioned us so deeply that it's like, if you want what you want, you have to consistently and constantly be working for it. It can feel really intimidating and almost like you draw the short stick in this whole experience as being a projector. So my question for you is like, how can somebody shift that perspective as well as like how have you seen being a projector as a win and like something that you can really use to continue to propel yourself towards these dreams that you have?
hmm Um, yeah, I mean, there's definitely like an element of it. It's like a mixed emotions towards, yeah, your energy type. But I think that being a projector is a gift. There is only like 20%, I think, of the world are projectors. And so like in the grand scheme of things, there's like not that many of us. And they say that your energy type is given to you based on what the world needed in that moment. And so when generators are born, it's like you're here to build something, you're here to really create an empire, you have this sustainable energy, and you're here to like move the world forward in a way of bringing things into life, ideas into action. Whereas when projectors are born into the world, you are born at a time where maybe the world is starting to move in a different direction. Maybe people are starting to see things in a different way. And you're the one that can see those things so clearly. And you are the one that has the ability to direct other people's energy in order to slowly make your way towards this like new world, new earth. And so, whilst you may not have the stamina, you have the insight. They say your value is not in your output when you're a projector. It's not how much you physically can bring to the table, but it's more how clear and concise and you can lead people and guide people towards where they want to go. So
Totally.
it's
One of
a
it's so fun to like also look into our society and see the different energy types of people that we look to in the world because I think for a lot of people, they would look to Taylor Swift and be like, she's making absolute ripples in the world and in music, and especially in, I think, like female empowerment and just the feminine. I think a feminine revolution is happening right now where a bunch of women are waking up to their power. And Taylor Swift is a projector. So it's like really seeing
yes.
it as like this powerhouse of a woman for anybody who's listening is like, oh, I'm a projector. It's like, yeah, so is Taylor Swift.
Yeah, she's literally done like what is it? Like a record-breaking world tour and yeah, definitely is like leading us in a new direction that is her gift of just being who she is.
Totally. And like in a way that based off kind of like what we were talking about earlier, it's like the traditional masculine way of doing things, kind of like you experienced in your workplace. It's like very hustle, very go, very grind, very like logical, practical, make shit happen versus like, and please correct me if I'm wrong in this. It's like I see projectors gifts so beautifully in this way of like she's doing it through song. You're doing it
Mhm.
through yoga, you're doing it through human design, you're doing it through self-discovery. You're doing it in this way that it's like it's not a checklist.
Mm.
It's an invitation to explore your own sense of creativity.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very sensitive way of being. And I think maybe I didn't let myself like fully feel when I was in, on the building sites because there was just so much like masculine energy. But now that I'm out of it, I let myself fully feel. And like one of the gifts of being a projector is you can walk into the room and it's almost like you have tenors like coming out of you and you can really feel the energy. And if you allow yourself to receive it, then you can guide those people better because you can really understand what they're feeling to a certain extent.
Totally, totally. And so, okay, we've mentioned projectors and generators. There's also manifesting generators, manifestors, and reflectors.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you have like a quick little blurb about each of those ones?
Yeah, cool. So I would say manifesting generators are kind of like generators on steroids. They are definitely the beings that have probably the most energy to exert out of everyone here. And because they have this kind of manifester aspect, which I'll talk about in a second, they like to move fast from thing to thing quickly. So rather than a generator sort of like having one thing that they're really working towards and to master, manifesting generators are more likely to be like very passionate and very multi-talented types of people. And they're here to put their energy into lots of different things at the same time. So they are here to pivot when their intuition tells them to pivot, even if it is halfway through something. So you might find
Mm.
a manifesting generator starting something and then being like, no, next thing, next thing, next thing. But they're very much like the multi-hyphenates. They are like the singers, dancers, actors, and they have all of these different things that like blend really nicely together to create like an overall sense of like what they do and who they are. And then manifestors, they are they're non-energy beings. They also don't have a defined sacral, but they have this connection from the throat center down to a motor center, and that gives them like a little bit of a boost of energy. And so a manifestor is really like what I would describe as like the ideas person. They are big, bold, visionary type of people. They are very much here to bring newness and change into the world. They are quite independent people. They have this aura that is what they call like polarizing and a little bit like repelling. And it's so that other people can't influence them. It's so that they can bring their original ideas into the world. But because they don't have this divine sacral, they're a little bit like projectors in the way that like when they get energy, they really need to act on their impulses. And then when they don't have it, they can rest. But they might have, say, a day or a week or even like a month of like high energy, whereas like a projector might have like a couple of hours of
Yeah.
high energy and then crash back down again. And then reflectors, they are like the rarest energy type out of everyone. There's only 1% of the world that are reflectors. And I would describe reflectors as projectors on steroids because they have
Mm.
absolutely no open centers at all. And so they are super, super sensitive people. They are the kind of people that can walk into the room and feel the energy so deeply that they know exactly what is going well and what people should do more of. And they can tell exactly like what isn't working. And then they can guide people in the direction of maybe how to fix it.
Cool.
Yeah, I've met one reflector in my life, and we actually, this is kind of like blabbing on a bit, but we were at a full moon ceremony and we did an eye gazing meditation. And so
Mm.
we sat opposite each other and I stared into her eyes, and it, like they say with reflectors, they reflect things. And I just saw myself so clearly in her. And I was like, that's crazy.
So cool. It's so interesting. I've had like 5 reflector clients since starting my business, and it's always been so cool to, like you said, they walk into a space and they like are able to so clearly reflect back the energy of the space. So you were talking about with projectors and generators that each of these types are brought here for a specific reason to serve a purpose collectively. What is that for reflectors?
I think for reflectors, it is to help people maybe understand themselves on a deeper level.
Mm.
And so maybe we'll find that there are more reflectors coming in as we experience this shift in people wanting to lead more a purpose-filled life. I think they're really here to, yeah, show people who they are and help them connect back to their truth as well.
Totally. Beautiful. Okay, so with all of that, all of these different types, for everybody who's listening, that's like either they want to take a deeper dive into understanding their human design because they already know what they are, but they're like, holy shit, Aaron's bringing so many different things that I didn't know about this energy type to the table. And, or somebody who's listening to us that's like, I don't know why I'm still listening, but these girls are talking about something that piques my interest in some way, shape, or form. How do they start to uncover more of their human design and understanding it for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think a great place to start is by pulling up your chart and figuring out what energy type you are. I would say there's no point in diving into the deeper aspects of human design if you haven't understood and mastered your energy type, because if that's out of whack, then you're not gonna, there's kind of like no point in putting yourself in your correct environment if you're not managing your energy correctly. So yeah, a good start with is maybe like doing some research into your energy type, or you can book a reading and discover like more things, starting with energy type and then going into profile, going into authority, which can just show so many different sort of like aspects to yourself.
Cool. And if I remember correctly, do you have a thing that helps people pull their charts, correct?
Yeah, I don't have my own sort of like chart calculator, but in my bio on Instagram, there's a link to the Jovian archive, which is a really reliable source and chart creator. It's the one that I quite like to use for my clients. And then I have a freebie as well, which goes through the energy types. So in a little bit more detail, and it's kind of maybe more targeted at people that are looking to go through this career pivot and have their human design really help them guide that.
I love it. Yay. Awesome. So I will link that. And then, so question for you. I know you said that this has been like one of the most pivotal tools in helping you now get to the place that you're at. We haven't talked about exactly where you are and what you're doing in the world right now. So go ahead and tell everybody, like, what does life look like for you now that you've done all of this self discovery and you've put yourself into the position of just understanding yourself so deeply and following your intuition?
Oh gosh, yeah. So when I got back from traveling, when I decided that I didn't want to do the sort of corporate thing anymore, I started diving into teaching in studios and really practicing like sharing what I believe in, and also learning how to read human design charts. And I spent a good nearly 2 years building up such a lovely community in my area. And I was in a really good position, but then I had this little voice in my head, my damn intuition, telling me to burn it all down again and to start over. And so I was like, really? I've just done all of this work and you want me to burn it down? And something that was really pulling me more than anything was putting myself in the right environment. I really truly believe that we are a reflection of not just the people that we are surrounded by, but the environment that we're surrounded by. And I was living like back in my hometown where I had always lived. And whilst it's gorgeous and it's a lovely part of the world, it just didn't feel inspiring anymore. And it wasn't anything to do with the people. I loved the community there, but it was more to do with I'm not sure what's next for me from here. And so me and Jake made the decision to move to Portugal. And so we went through quite a lengthy visa application process because now that the UK has exited the EU, it's a little bit more difficult. So it took us about 8 months, but we arrived in Portugal about 2 months ago, and we're settling in here, and we're basically starting again and building it all up again, which is really
Mhm.
exciting.
So exciting. How has life felt for you since being there?
Yeah, I think the environment change has felt really inspiring to be putting myself in a place where it's warm. I said I'm a Leo rising. I love the sun. I'm ruled by the sun. It literally puts me in such a different mood to be able to just walk around, and especially being like a really sensitive projector, to be able to walk around and feel the laid back calm lifestyle that the Portuguese have. They are they're very family orientated. They love social events. They love putting a lot of energy into like connecting with other people, which is so nice. The food is great. The beaches, and we're also really close to some gorgeous hikes in the Sintra Hills. So it's just felt like a really supportive environment. And I think sometimes it takes stepping away from what you've always been doing to be able to get really clear on what you want to bring into the world next. And I think that's what traveling did for me. And then now this is what Portugal is doing for me.
Beautiful. Is there anything on that that you're like ready to share, or is it still brewing right now?
Yeah, I've got a yoga retreat coming up in end of October, beginning of November, which I'm really excited. It's the first one that we are doing abroad. Me and Jake are running it together, my partner. And that's going to be really fun. I've also been teaching on a yoga teacher training, which has been so lovely. It's actually the one that I did in Bali, but that is over here in Portugal now.
Cool.
And then I'm still doing human design readings as well, online and in person, if anyone's ever in Lisbon or Cascais.
I'll put all of your information for people to book with you down below in the show notes. I have two last questions for you. First one is knowing all that you know about yourself now, like no limitations whatsoever. What do you see as like yourself manifesting for your life moving forward?
Ooh, that's exciting. I think from my experience, you never really know. And
Mhm.
you definitely should be open to it being even better than you could imagine. I can see myself hosting retreats, maybe not just in Portugal, but around the world, that dive quite deeply into yoga and into human design. And maybe even one day bringing new teachers into the world as well, teaching people how to teach. I really enjoyed teaching on the yoga teacher training that I've just done. That I can see myself maybe eventually doing that as well, and maybe teaching people how to read human design charts.
Beautiful. I love it. So fun. It's so, like we were talking about at the beginning, just cool to see that you following these things, trusting these things. Again, not knowing exactly where they're going to lead, and what you talked about with not knowing how things will manifest moving forward, but being open to it being better than you could have ever imagined. Do you think, like, looking back to Erin 4 years ago, she would ever imagine that you'd be where you are today?
She would be absolutely buzzing, but I don't think it would ever occur to her that this would be our reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
That's
she'd
the
think,
same for me.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so crazy. It's like what you're saying of the environment that you're in and just how much it inspires this like part of yourself that needed to be nourished. I've noticed that for myself just being back in Colorado for the past 5 weeks. I'm like, it's really nice to be here. And it's really nice that it's much more calm and peaceful and community oriented, like you were talking about. But like my soul thrives in the city and love the buzz. I love the fast pace. I love the hustle, not personally for myself. I love that other people are hustling. And just like being around that energy and just how much it does for me. And just like we've talked about so much, that comes from me knowing myself and honoring these different aspects and components and the different tools that can help us get there, just like Erin's talked about so much in this. So, Erin, last question I have for you. This is the question that I like to ask on every guest interview is what makes life rich for you?
Oh, that's such a big question. I think it is the like kind of like we talked about, the element of surprise and just being so open to all of the different possibilities that your life could go in. I think that what makes it rich is really understanding yourself on a really deep level and just relentlessly following your heart
Mhm.
and just seeing where that takes you.
I'm so with you. Relentless is such a great word for it. Relentlessly following your heart, relentlessly following your intuition, seeing what you can make of it. Because, like you said, getting to the end of your life and wishing that you would have listened to your intuition instead of doing those other things, I think is a really beautiful motivator. So, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this with us. I know I've alluded to it a few different times, but do you just want to share with everybody like what you have to offer, what you have to help them with for understanding themselves and how they can work with you if they're wanting to?
Yeah, sure. I would say the best place to find me is probably Instagram. I'm sure you'll put my handle in the show notes. But at the moment, it is retreats. So this one that's coming up in October. I haven't launched it yet, but I'm hoping to bring another one out in April next year, which is going to be quite heavily focused on human design and yoga. And then I read human design charts. I do one-to-one. We can focus on like very specific aspects, whether it is relationships, whether it is a career pivot or whether it's really just understanding your gifts and what makes you different. And yeah, I have my freebie. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Yay. So, yeah, for everybody who's listening, go ahead and check out the show notes down below to connect with Erin over on Instagram and become a part of her world, get in on all of these goodies that she has to offer. I hope that all of you enjoyed today's podcast episode, and I'll chat with you on the next one.